Welcome to the ROI Masterclass, the podcast where vision meets strategy and bold moves create measurable results. I'm Liat Siegel, interior designer and ROI strategist with 17 years of experience. I help businesses transform properties and ideas into high-performing assets. This show is specifically for real estate investors, hospitality operators, and boutique developers who aren't afraid to take risks, challenge the status quo, and demand a return on every decision they make. Each and every week, we talk with innovators and leaders across industries about the strategies and the insights and really all the unconventional thinking that turns potential into profit every single time. If you believe that smart design, decisive leadership, and strategic risk are the keys to real ROI, you're in the exact right place. Let's dive in. Today, we're joined by Jay Perry, a private chef, food consultant, culinary educator, and author whose work bridges high-end hospitality, culinary innovation, and experiential design. Jay's approach highlights how every single detail from menu development to the ambiance and service contributes to a restaurant's profitability and guest loyalty. We'll explore how his philosophy and projects, including his unique mobile restaurant concept, exemplify ROI-driven thinking in the food and hospitality industry. Thank you so much for joining us today.
That's glad to be here. I'm glad we connected and I'm glad we can do this today. Pretty exciting what you're doing as well.
Thank you. So share with us about your journey and what you're doing.
Sure. Well, I've been in the industry for a long time, and like the stories of most people, it's like I feel that once you get kind of bitten by the hospitality and you either love it or you don't, you push through it or you give up. And there's a lot of people, whether it's through the culinary side or the front of the house side, but I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the dynamics of what was possible. I fell in love with being able to interact with people. I fell in love with the community, of the staff and the team. You're like a family. You're always like a family. You're constantly working with each other. And sometimes in the way you grow up, when you feel that you've lacked that family kind of togetherness, you find it in other ways. And so I found it in the food industry and I just loved it. I started working in restaurants when I was younger. I lied about my age because I had to be 16 and I was 15. And I told them that I was still in school and I was really on the borderline of quitting school because I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. I thought baseball would be my career. But I just fell in love with what food can be like and what it looked like on a plate, how to service people and how to make people happy. I left San Diego, went up to Los Angeles and started working up there when Bago was just about to open. Wolfgang Puck was at Ma Maison. All these chefs that I've never heard of, I've read about in magazines, and I just fell in love with it. I love what people were able to do to create food on a plate. And I love the way there was maitre d's and gueridon service and all these things that really kind of, when you're in San Diego, growing up in mostly tacos and beach pubs, and you go to Los Angeles and see fine dining, it really changes you. And you either say, I want more of this, or you say, this is just not for me. Well, I wanted more of it. And so I just decided to kind of just step both feet into it. I wanted to learn about culinary. I worked at the Century Plaza Hotel and I started as a busboy and it was a really brand new hotel, really nice hotel in the 80s. And what happened was there were 7 restaurants in there and I fell in love with what all these restaurants were doing. French restaurants and different style of nouvelle cuisine was the word there, at that time. And all I had to learn about culinary when I wanted to be a chef was read magazines, Bon Appetit, Food and Wine. Culinary school was not going to be my thing because it was not as easy back then to get into culinary school. So I just studied. I read magazines. I started making recipes at home. I started going to the chefs and I said, hey, what is a beurre blanc? Well, how do you make this? And how do you do a reduction? And I just wrote notes and I realized that I wanted to be a chef. So that took me in every direction that I wanted to do. I traveled. I learned from other chefs, Italian chefs, French chefs. I understood what, fine dining looked like at a time. My tableside service, I worked in that. I worked in private clubs in Los Angeles. So I really got to experience a lot in the food and hospitality industry. And I feel really fortunate about that. And then I moved to Italy and studied culinary there and went to France and came back. And I just kind of had my career take off and I became an executive chef and started getting in magazines. And I realized that this is what I wanted to do. And so I'm here now in Arizona being a private chef. And that's a story in itself.
Wow. I mean, I really admire anyone who has the grit and hustle to, when it's not handed to you on a silver platter, right? And you go and you find it and you do whatever it takes, fulfill your dreams, to be fulfilled by those dreams. It's incredible. What was like the one aspect or two aspects of fine dining that really drew you in?
A couple things. One, when you look at a fine dining restaurant and you see the detail that's needed, it's like an orchestra. You know, you see everybody play their part from the moment you walk into the restaurant. You see the hostess, everybody looks sharp. Certain waiters are in tuxedo jackets. And then just the aspect of the way the food not only looked, but the way it was served. You know, when you see something like that, that's so perfectly executed and done in a way that you're looking with your eyes, and it's an experience when you're submersed in that. And so I just fell in love with it. I just knew that fine dining was what I wanted to do in an aspect of being a chef. I wanted to learn everything about it. It wasn't easy. I've made a lot of mistakes during that time along the way. I mean, I was doing tableside service one day and I said, oh, I can handle this. And in the kitchen, you know, when you separate the eggs to make Caesar salad, you're using your hands and you got gloves. But when you're on fine dining, you have to learn how to take the eggshells, you know, and separate the egg yolk. Well, I forgot about that. And I'm using my hands at the table. And the maitre d' comes up and he says, excuse me. And he pushed me aside. I apologize for this. And he took care of it the right way. But so, you know, you learn certain things here and there, but I just loved it. It was like an orchestra. And I loved the way the food looked, and not easy to make and not easy to be at that level at that time.
I love that you took that failure as a badge. There's so many people that are really reframing failure, like Alex Hormozi talks a lot about this and how every time it's a learning experience. And to see it that way and not, you know, be too proud is a huge deal. And that's the only way we can get better and better, is to self-assess and be open to criticism and pivot accordingly.
And you know, you don't want to put your head down and realize that and give up. Like I said in the beginning of the conversation, you realize either you give up or you push through and you want to be better. And if you really love the industry, if you really love service and you love hospitality and you love food, you like making people happy, the little mistakes and the flaws and the thing, they're irrelevant. I mean, they're learning experiences, but they push you even harder to be better, I think, in this industry.
What are some of the main things that you think fine dining restaurants could get wrong? Like, what is their Achilles heel that you see needs to kind of be innovated, or a little more effort needs to be put in to make it that next level?
I'll look at it from past compared to now. And I've had conversations with a lot of restaurateurs and people. And what I feel, because of the rapid growth of restaurants and everybody wanted to be trendy and in restaurant for the moment, I think what fine dining has lost is the elegance and the class. There is a level of service that belongs in fine dining, and there's a level of how you instruct and teach that. And I think that's becoming a lost art. I think they're trying to pick it back up, but I think they're making shortcuts on it. But when you walk into a fine dining restaurant, the moment you walk in, when you're right there at that front of that hostess station, it's the most kind of key aspect of the moment you walk in, because it's the way you're greeted. And then you look at your eyes, you look at the restaurant that you're in, and you really, when you see luxury, when you see detail, you can find that in fine dining. You know, everything is looked at. I mean, that's, you know, when we talk about Michelin stars and stuff like that, but I just think on a surface level of understanding the difference between your regular trendy restaurant that's just kind of like trying to hit all the trend bells to a fine dining, very classic. I mean, there's a different feel, a presence, I think, when you walk into a fine dining restaurant. And I think that in some ways an art that's missing. And I think it needs to get back. I think people need to really kind of re-educate and train a staff of really understanding fine dining and just your know-how of service.
I wonder if that needs to kind of be systemized so that it can be repeatable rather than becoming that lost art. I think that it's so vital to look strategically at the layout. When you said the host or the hostess, when you're walking in, what are your sight lines? Just like, you know, the Michelin stars, they kind of audit a restaurant to see, you know, where it lands. We've built within our systems what's called Prime 18. And on one of those layers of auditing and seeing how well a space is laid out is the sight lines. Like for a restaurant, I would love to hear your take on, we know that food and beverage is everything. wine and beverage has higher profit margins than anything else, right? And so if you're seeing the bar when you first walk in to a restaurant and you're seeing the theatrics of how food is prepared, or you're looking over at your neighbor and you're saying, oh, wow, I love that. I want that. I love that drink. I want that drink. I think that a restaurant is more profitable that way when it's strategically laid out. That is the art, I think, that you're articulating, but more in a systemized and strategic, repeatable way.
You're right. Today, with so many restaurants open up, and we'll talk about what's happening here in Arizona, you see a lot of people, they're really trying to go for the trends. They're really trying to go for that wow factor really quick, that poppy thing. And they're trying to have all the trendy items on the menus, and they're trying to do this. Everybody's doing the same thing. That's great. Restaurant and investment companies put a lot of money into that. But what happens is that the next trendy restaurant opens up and everybody flocks from there and leaves. What I like about classically done fine dining is it stays. People, they always go back to that. That's what they want. They don't want the loud music sometimes. They just want to hear, I like to go and hear service. I like to hear things happening in the restaurant, the communication with the servers, the dialogue and the things that I see in the kitchen, what's happening, whether it's behind doors or an open kitchen. But there's a certain music already when you walk into fine dining restaurants that's done right. And people, they crave that. I just don't think that the trendy restaurants are good, but I don't think they represent what true hospitality is. As far as when you step into a restaurant, I'm always looking how the tables line up. I'm always looking, does the restaurant, the menu, does the name really match the feel of when I walk in? I'm always critical about those things for me because I've been in it so long and I've seen every type of restaurant or whether it's in a hotel or in a restaurant. So I'm always looking at those things and how does it make me feel? What am I seeing in all my experience? Does it make sense to me? Do I get what they want to do? And then I'm watching how everybody moves in the restaurant. Those things really matter. And I think it matters to people, especially when you have so many restaurants now opening up all over the place.
What I'm hearing you say is that brand loyalty is kind of falling apart.
It is.
Yeah. So my question to you would be how does a restaurant position themselves, or what do they need to be doing differently in order to, from your perspective, build that loyalty and that brand trust?
First of all, they shouldn't be doing what everybody else is doing. They should be doing what's right, what feels right, and what makes sense to them and what they understand about the level of why are they opening the restaurant? Why do they want people in there? What's going to keep people coming back? And really find all those metrics to say what makes them unique, not like everybody else, but what makes them more experiential. Look at every detail of what they're doing, because in the end, people are going to see the difference and they're going to want how they feel when they walk in, how they're treated, how they're remembered, how they're greeted, how they're taken to their table. It's like I said, it's like an orchestra. When you're a conductor and a violin is out of tune, and if you don't hear that string that's out of tune as a conductor, well, then something's wrong. You're the one who should be hearing the music. And I think that restaurant people really should understand what it means to be a fine-tuned orchestra on how they perceive it. And I think once they realize that let's just make it our brand, this is what we want to do. Let's not try and do what everybody else is doing. Let's not make it look and feel the way everybody makes it feel. But what do we understand of the level of what hospitality is? And let's just drive it towards that. And let's create our own business and our own clientele to where they're always going to tell their friends and they're always going to come back because they're always remembered before they even walk out the door.
So aside from service and just that level, that high touch service feel, it sounds like you're also saying that the avatar and the market and targeting the way that the restaurant is to that target audience is so vital so that they have this sense of belonging and that they're seen, right? Because if you feel that sense of belonging and you feel that this is your place, right? And your family or your extended family, then you're going to want to come back again and again. And obviously that drives profitability.
I mean, if I'm opening a restaurant and I want it to be fun, well, I have to look at, is my restaurant fun when people walk in? Now, do I want to have fun in fine dining? No, it's different. It's what am I creating? What kind of people? How do I want people to feel? I want them to feel like they can just laugh and have a good time. Their waiter's going to make them feel like they're having fun. They'll laugh at their jokes or whatever they want people to feel like in their restaurant. That's the feeling that we want people to have. Then you create that atmosphere for it. Some people say, we just want to serve really incredibly great food at a great price. Okay, well, how do we do that? We want a place that's just kind of like, it has all the, like I said, the bells and whistles that click of trend, good pricing and stuff like that. And then they're going to kind of take that and brand that and cookie cutter that. And that's going to be their other restaurants across the country. That's what they want. All I'm saying is stay true and loyal to your brand of how you want people to feel in your restaurant. And then make sure your staff understands understands that. And they're the ones that are out there with the clients and the guests. How are they making them feel?
Absolutely. How do you see all of that in your experience translate into the way design impacts the brand and the experience?
Right now, currently for me, like I'm a private chef. I'm in high-end luxury homes. Okay. So I get to see so many beautifully designed homes. I get to talk to developers and I'm with the clients, in their homes. And I think I just saw the best kitchen until I walk in the next client. And I think, okay, now this kitchen is unbelievable. Just when you think that you've seen a great kitchen, you go into a kitchen, there's a kitchen behind the kitchen. Then you have another place where you can kind of do this. And it's like some people, when they're designing their homes, and so they know what they want. So I see luxury in a home at a very high level. And so now when you see restaurants and stuff like that, it's a little bit different. But what I'm always looking for functioning, how does it function? How does it flow? How is everybody moving? Does everything resonate with me or with the guest experience as far as like from beginning to end? Like I said, how are they greeted and how are they remembered when they leave? And just to kind of continue to bring them back, because with day and age right now, there are so many restaurants opening up. For some reason, during back in 2020, and we don't want to mention what happened there, we saw a decrease and, we saw restaurants shutting down. A lot of people were shutting their doors, didn't know how to pivot. Things were kind of changing dramatically. You didn't know whether you're sitting inside or outside. You didn't really know what you wanted to invest in. People were opening restaurants. Doors were about to open. Then all of a sudden the doors had to shut. Well, now we're in this resurgence. Just take Scottsdale here. It's one of the fastest growing cities right now in the country. The per capita income, we're expected to have over 150 million and multimillionaires living here. And these are second homes, first homes, and third homes. So there's a giant restaurant boom going on. And a lot of restaurant groups are coming here. Capital groups are bringing their restaurants from Las Vegas, from Los Angeles, from Chicago, from New York. So they're coming in here. Why? And we can only handle so many restaurants. There's only so many people to work. But when you see all that, now you're really seeing just a lot of different trends and ideas that are coming into these brands. I like to go and explore these brands and see what they're doing because some of them I've never experienced before. So, it's a good thing, but it's also could be, growth is always a challenging thing as well.
Do you think that there's a specific reason why you're seeing such growth? And do you think it's happening across the country?
That's a good question about whether it's happening across the country. Well, if Scottsdale and Paradise Valley out here in Phoenix is any indicator of what's happening, then there must be a huge boom going on everywhere. But all I know is that Arizona out here in the Phoenix, we call it the East Valley. It is growing. I can turn on my social media and all of a sudden there's an influencer saying, well, there's a new restaurant. We're so excited. New restaurant's opening. And then the next day, there's a new restaurant opening. So-and-so's opening their restaurant. I really can't put my finger on the reason why. All I know is that the season and the environment and the demographics are good. That's why they're coming here for a reason. I would say when I lived in Portland at the time of the restaurant boom, I'd say Portland at the time I was there in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, Portland saw more James Beard Award nominations than any city in the country. There were so many chefs and so many great restaurants coming out that were all James Beard nominations. And then after 2020, things started to change. But what's happening here is Arizona is becoming a destination food town. It's becoming an entertainment area now. We have a lot of things. We have entertainment. We have capital. There's a lot of high income wealth people here. Homes are being built like crazy. There's growth as far as just commercialization. It's a big growth out here. And so restaurant groups want to come out because they, the whole saying, follow the money. You're following the money. The money's here.
That makes a lot of sense. And in terms of following the money, I know that you worked with developers to help them optimize their kitchens. How does that impact their ROI?
Well, some of the high level developers, they're developing this thing called the concierge service. So when you buy into their home, you're buying a whole package deal for a lifetime as long as you own that home. Meaning that concierge service provides and the home developer provides, if you need security, if you need landscaping, pool maintenance, whatever service you need for the duration of that home. Well, one of them now is a chef and I'm part of the concierge. So I'm like, they vet their chef and so it's me. So I go in all these homes and I'm working with these clients prior through emails and just discussing with them, getting them ready to move into their home and being able to go in their kitchen. Because, when you see how much money people put in their kitchen, obviously they love food and they want to, a lot of them either learn how to use that equipment or they just want somebody to come and cook for them. And it's a little bit of both. So I go in there and when I'm looking at their kitchen and I look at it, it's already designed and laid out. There are times where I get asked, hey, what equipment do you suggest? best? What has the biggest impact? Where should I put my hood? What makes sense? So when they're asking a chef, like, okay, well, is it going to be you or are you going to want a private chef? Do you like to entertain? Will you have big events here? Well, here's what I think you should be doing to really maximize this kitchen, keep a lot of clutter out of eyesight, and let's create some stuff behind the walls. Let's do some kind of design there. Here's the type of equipment I think you're going to need. Then it comes down to small wares. How do you want your kitchen to feel? When you're opening your drawers, what are you looking at? What type of equipment that you want to see? And so I create this punch list for the clients. And then I'm just discussing with them, like, so how much cooking are you going to be doing? And what do you like to cook? Would you like to learn some stuff? Okay. We can come over and we can do some classes here and really kind of, getting the clients in these homes to really utilize their kitchen. They just spent $500,000 on it. So we really want to, some people spend more in their kitchens at home than restaurants do in their restaurants because they want the best. We're looking at every detail in their kitchen, from the plates to the stemwares to the silverware to the tabletop look. So we're looking at all that because to the client, the homeowner, their ROI for them is just, everybody wants to have the best feel home. They want when their guests come over, their friends come over, they want to have people to have an experience in their home. Just like, when you want people to have an experience in a restaurant. So I try and help them with those little smaller details that they don't see and really maximizing just their ROI as far as their investment in their home.
Any tips for our audience in terms of kitchen optimization, something quick that you can share with us?
Well, one, get equipment that you really feel that you're going to use. Don't just put it in there because it's the nice equipment to have. Really get something that you really are going to use all the time. What are the main places you're going to be in your kitchen? Well, I'm going to be at my sink and at my stovetop. I always tell my clients, when you're at your stovetop, the greatest thing is how many steps or turns do I need to make? Like, do I have everything I need right there? Do I have a little grill? Do I have a couple burners? Do I have an induction? So when I say these are the simple things that you can have to where you can cook a great meal right here, just standing right here. Let's look at this space and let's take value in it because this is where you're going to be doing your cooking. That's key. And just always refrigeration, functionality. I always say under counter pull out drawers. If you're there next to your stovetop, I think like a restaurant. People don't like to cook sometimes because it gets difficult. The tasks get too hard. The preparation gets too much. And they say, and the cleaning gets, so they don't like to do it all the time. I always say, let's look at everything that's right by you. You have your big refrigerator, but when you're ready to cook, here's your little small refrigerator. You have a pull-out drawers, really nice drawers for your pots and pans that are right there. So I always look at just that space right there. So the tip is wherever you're going to be in that kitchen, which is usually at that stovetop, look at it, how to make it more efficient and work for you or how you want to cook, not for what some designer tells you what it should look like, but you need to be able to sit there and say, what do you want? How do you cook? That's important.
Strategically setting it up for your specific workflow, the work triangle, making sure that that's all set up correctly between the fridge, the stove, and the sink, right? And that it's not, all the way at the other end, and make sure that everything is within close proximity is so valuable, first and foremost.
And it might look good from a distance, but when you're actually in there, it's like, oh gosh, sometimes I go in there and says, oh gosh, I wish you would have called me and I would have helped you with this. I would have made this a lot easier for you.
What are your favorite appliances? And do you like induction?
I love induction. I think great pans now are being made. A lot of great chefs are putting their stamp on great induction pans that are purpose. I mean, I'm a big fan of Sub-Zero, their innovation is really good. Not everybody can put a giant Gagana oven set and everything in their home, although I've been in a home and I've seen it. It's a beautiful piece to look at. But today's cooking requires technology. And so I think Sub-Zero, Wolf and mainly Sub-Zero, they're doing some really good stuff with their ovens in their home. They're taking the commercial feel and bring it into your home. And that's where I kind of come in with these clients, teach them how to use that equipment.
You're providing the experiential design and feel in everything that you're doing, whether it's in a restaurant or in helping optimize a home. I love that you provide the classes too. I think that's so cool. And then also now with your fine dining mobile experience, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Gosh.
That's so cool.
I stepped away out of the restaurant industry for a reason. I mean, I've done it for a long time, but what I realized, I love cooking. My heart is a chef. I love the industry in itself as a whole. But what became, for me after a while, managing people, it's always different. It's always a challenge. You either love it or you don't, and that can burn you out. That can tire you out when you're so focused on how to manage people, because if you're managing people, it's because you got to manage your restaurant with the people in there. And if that's not working the way you want it to, it becomes a challenge. So I decided, I'd like to remove all that, the things that really kind of get me down. I just want to focus on cooking and I want to focus on the person in front of me and the meal in front of them. I want to be able to to interact and engage with my clients or guests. So as a private chef and getting out of the restaurants as a chef, I thought, well, why don't I create this experience to where it's actually I'm bringing the restaurant to them. So it's not a trailer. It's not like an Airstream trailer where you just kind of cook out of a window and people walk up. I want to create an experience to where you are stepping into my trailer and it's a restaurant. It's designed as a restaurant. It's beautiful. I'm working with Caitlin Wolf, who's one of the most innovative and creative designers out here in Scottsdale, I believe. She's amazing. So we got together and I told her my vision and my idea. I showed her the shell of my trailer and I thought, you know what? I want to be able to cook for people while they're sitting right there on my deck. And it's a beautiful experience. So we talked and I picked out all the best equipment and I told her, I want the look to feel that when people are sitting, the deck is cool because it's a wall from the trailer, but when it comes down, it's a deck and there's tables there and there's an awning that comes out. So I said, when I'm sitting down there, if I'm a guest and I'm looking inside the trailer, I want to be able to see luxury. I want to see somebody's home in a sense, but I want to see it people, 2 or 3 people in there moving like it's a restaurant, like it's an open kitchen, but I want it so refined and so orchestrated. So that's what we came down to. And that's what this is going to be. So I can host anywhere from 10 to 20 people sitting on my deck and it's full service. It's bar, it's wine, it's sitting down, it's cocktail time, and they experience everything right there. It's a personalized fine dining restaurant that either pulls up to their house or it goes to a location and becomes a destination restaurant. So the atmosphere and the scenery becomes where I bring that trailer and that restaurant, I would say. And so it's a fine dining destination experience.
That's so cool. So how does that look practically if, let's say, you're wanting to do one of those experiences for within the development community that you mentioned? Like if you wanted to pull up, how much room does it take? Like how much do you need? Or is it more for the setting of like a wedding or a family event or something like that?
It's more personal. You know, like I said, like one of my developers that I work with, Bedrock, and they're very amazing. They're building homes like crazy. Well, him and I sat down, Rich Brock, and amazing. The team is building some incredible homes. And I was talking to him about it. And he says, how would this work for me? And I says, this is how it would work. Let's just say, Rich, you got a new development property that you're doing somewhere. And you're going to build at least 20 homes, multi-million-dollar homes. And you want to do the ribbon cutting of this new property. Well, you have certain clientele that come out that really want to see that are your possible buyers. And now you go through your presentation and all of a sudden the restaurant pulls up. And while they're going through the presentation, it unfolds and the restaurant opens and I'm preparing a meal. So now these 15 or 20 potential people want to buy these homes in a property where they're just looking at with views. Now they can go right into the restaurant and have a perfectly executed meal of a fine dining dinner to celebrate or to help his presentation look even better. It's kind of like an investment for him to see something like that for his clients, because now instead of driving and going to a restaurant, the restaurant just came to them and they can continue that feeling and that experience by walking off and looking at the site and the property to now sit down. This is what it could feel like in your home kind of thing. And he just like went, oh my gosh, that's ingenious. So he can't wait for it to be done.
Amazing. I mean, I could absolutely see how that, I mean, even the people that are coming for the ribbon cutting, networking, and an opportunity for them to just continue to be on site and be part of that brand for the developer. It just kind of solidifies that even more and creates an extension of the experiential elements of all of it.
Totally agree. It solidifies the partnership, the experience of everything of what it's going to mean to buy one of his homes by the chef that he uses for his concierge. So now you get to just kind of can feel that experience of what it's going to feel like. So it's a continued branding partnership and relationship that people, remember I told you in walking into a restaurant, you want that feeling and you want to experience something from the moment you step into the moment you leave. Well, this is what this will create as far as like from a home building, development, and purchasing side of things for these luxury homes and these clients.
Amazing. That is so exciting. I can't wait to see it literally unfold. So can you share with our audience, just leave them with a few, maybe 3 tips on how to create that experiential, like what would be your biggest takeaways in terms of creating that experiential atmosphere?
Know what you want as far as a person who's creating the experience atmosphere. Know what you want and how you want to make people feel. Because the goal in restaurants is to not just have a one-time visitor. A lot of people, I'll just a little caveat. When you go to a Michelin star restaurant, it's a great experience. People will travel miles and planes to go have it a one-time experience. That's a one-time experience. It says a great experience. It's like a bucket list thing. Well, in a restaurant service, you don't want the one-time experience. You want to get them. You want them to be, I always say, you want people to walk out their front door of their home to walk into your back door, always to your kitchen. You want want them to have that accessibility and that feeling this is their place that they want to come. So I always say, know what you want to create, know who you want to create it for, and execute it flawlessly with what you want to do. And it's always about branding in the relationship, branding, relationship, and experience. Make everything and everyone feel valued because they're a reflection of you and what you want your guests and clients to feel like.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights and wisdom with us today, Jay. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
My website is jperry, just the letter J, chef, jperrychef.com. And you can follow me, J Perry Chef, on Instagram too, and reach me there. But I like getting my website more driven traffic to there.
Amazing. We'll put that in the show notes for you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Leah. I appreciate it. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.